Numbers have started to level out a bit, so I think we'll go ahead and get started since the first part of this webinar is going to be what you guys have seen if you've been on any of our webinars before. So we'll cover a lot of the same information that we've covered before so that you guys can see that same type of information. We always like to make sure that you guys are up to date on what's going on there. So we'll just go ahead and dive in. So today we're going to be talking about event workflow and specifically kind of focusing on the event request form since that's very different from what it was in Astra Schedule. So we'll be talking through that. As a reminder, you guys are muted. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A. The Q&A is the best place for us to be able to keep up with those questions, be able to answer those. And if there are any questions that need to be asked live, we'll be able to, click a little button or ask live, and we can answer those live as well. So that information is ready and good to go too. So we have that available to you in the Q&A. Feel free to keep using the chat to put in your name, where you're from, things like that, and you can use the chat for other things as well. Yeah. So first we're going to go through, of course, our normal welcome. We'll talk about what, why, and when with migration. Then we're going to talk through the event request form setup, room and resource questions, and then Charlie's going to close us out with talking through notifications and how those are a little different in this new platform. And then if there are any questions left over that we need to answer, we'll go through that, and then we'll go through next steps. My name is Maggie Roberts. I'm the Client Services Advisor at Astra. I've been at Astra for 7 and almost a half years. This will be my last webinar before I have a baby in the next few weeks, so that's going to be fun. And then we also have Charlie, who's our Director of Product Experience. He's been helping me with these last couple webinars too. You'll see him in a couple months going through most likely our registrations and invoicing webinar. And then next month is, this is spoiler alert to our last slide that we have, is around schedule building. So that'll be more on the academic side as well. Okay, thanks, Charlie. So as a reminder, you guys are migrating from Astra Schedule to what we call essential scheduling, which is everything room scheduling, but also academic scheduling as a whole. So we want to make sure that you have efficient course scheduling everywhere across campus, whether that's in your academics, but also in your events, conflict-free checking, all those great things about Astra Schedule, but just even more enhanced. We have efficient academic scheduling, conflict-free, like I said, a centralized calendar, which is, one of the #1 things that Astra Schedule does for you. We want to continue that, of course. And then events and revenue as well, with the revenue piece being an added bonus that we had from Astra Schedule in this new platform that we have available and we'll be talking about in a couple months. So again, these are the different pieces that we'll be talking through that are a part of essential scheduling. Today, we're going to be specifically talking in the event scheduling category, talking through requests. But wanted to get to the slide, as we always do, of why should we migrate. A big one is the newer architecture. The big thing is that you don't have to do upgrades or things like that, like we always did with version 6, 7, and 8. Those are all things where now we have continuous deployment, which means we can update the code for the software every 20 minutes if we want to, but we can push out updates and new things, bug fixes if those happen to squeak through, those types of things that we can get to you rapidly and reliably. Our integrations are strong through all of our API structures. We have modern API integrations with the student information systems as well. So like we use Ethos when it comes to Ellucian products, so Banner and Colleague. And then we also have a Workday API that we leverage for that integration, which we've been, I have some fun updates on that. And then just a more intuitive experience. The event platform is all mobile friendly, which is huge. And then of course, a single interface. We have some clients that you guys already have what we used to call Monoline and Predict, which is our analytics tool, and you had Astra Schedule, and I had a client who lovingly calls them still Orange Astra and Blue Astra. Now it's just going to be one Astra for all things scheduling in everything that you need to do in essential scheduling. Okay. This when should I migrate? We've had this slide as well. We do have an update on here. So it's still, all the basic essential scheduling pieces are ready to go. We do have our reporting that's going to be updated even more at the latter half of this year. And then room optimization is going to be available in 2025. And one thing about optimization is that it's, we're going to have probably waves of optimization of the different pieces that it can do. So that's going to be available all throughout the year in 2025 and continuing to grow. And then final exam scheduling is something probably end of 2025 that we'll see. Now, when it comes to the integration with your student information system, so that you guys, I know a lot of you are event schedulers, but so that you guys can conflict-free check around the classes that are happening on your campus. And also so your academic team can import those sections, view those, see historical analytics, and then even publish the information about those sections back to the student information system. We have this here. The one update that we have from our last webinar is we actually have the full Workday integration now. We're bi-directional with importing information from Workday as well as writing back Workday information. I was able to see a live demo of it myself a couple weeks ago, which is very exciting. And they're continuing to grow that out as well as we work with Workday. So very exciting things happening on that front, but kind of put yourselves in those categories. If you have any questions at all about when, why, how, what should I do, absolutely contact your client success lead. They are the experts on this. I've been working with them very closely so that they know when you guys should migrate. We should already start having conversations, even if we already have conversations with clients who are like, well, I use optimization, but I want to start having conversations around migrations, getting my quotes, getting all those ducks in a row so that you guys can be ready to move as soon as you're ready to go. So what are we migrating? Section data is still going to come in from your student information system. So we don't actually have to migrate the section data. That still lives in your student information system when we're going to pull that. We will have a new integration method for all of those. We are going to migrate your room data from Astra Schedule into our new platform because we know we do import room data from the student information system, but we know that Astra Schedule often holds a lot more sometimes room data than your student information system does. So we want to keep that information for you and pull it over because you filled out that room file for a reason in Astra Schedule. And then we're going to be pulling over 1 year past, current, and all future events into that new platform as well, so that you don't have to rebuild any events. We are looking at about a 1-month migration project in order to get everything over. So there could be maybe a little bit of time when you're having to build events in both Astra Schedule and new platform before you actually go live. There shouldn't be a lot of overlap there, and you should be able to get as much of your event data moved over as you need. Okay, so now we get into the product demo. So we're going to go through the event request setup first. We're going to go through room and resource questions and how we can set those up as well. And then, like I said, we're going to go through notifications. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen here for us real quick. And let me share and switch over to my screen that has our product on it. Okay, great. Charlie, will you just confirm for me that you're seeing our events platform?
You're all good.
Okay, great. So as a reminder, this is our events platform, but I'm going to come in and first talk about the event request form, and I'm going to talk about the settings of that first. So I'm going to come down here to my name and go to organization settings because I have access to this as an admin, and I'm going to click on requests. And so this is where I can set up a lot of information about the event request form. So that's an important thing, is that I'm saying form and not forms. And that's because Astra Schedule had many forms. You could build as many as you want to. Some of you have many, many, many event request forms. Some of you only have a handful or 1 or 2, which is great. In this essential scheduling world, you have one form, and it's a smart form. It knows who you are, so it knows what questions to give you. It knows what you're requesting, so it knows which questions to give you. So it's going to be a smarter form that has kind of that if-then statement built in, which we had a lot of people ask for in Astra Schedule. If they pick this, show this question. If not, don't show that question type of thing. So it's a very smart form in that way. And you can set up it in different ways by leveraging the different pieces of the form. Okay. So the first thing you can do is turn on the form. If you don't want to use the event request forms for any reason in Essential Scheduling, you can turn those off completely. So those are toggles. I'll talk about the space requests in a minute. And then you can set up who the default approvers for the form are. So you could see that we have a couple people in here right now. That means these people are receiving notifications to approve these events. They're getting either emails or texts, things like that. That kind of is a spoiler alert for what Charlie's going to talk through to approve events and things like that. And then we get into our global request questions. So this is kind of coming up with your question bank, right? So in Astra Schedule, you would build your form and then you'd hit the little edit button and you'd be able to go in and fill out all of your questions that you wanted people to ask on that particular form. Instead of having to do it on different forms, now you can do one form and you can do it by persona, right? So we have this, will you have alcohol at your event? We can see it's not required, but we can make it required if we want to. We can delete this question very easily. But another thing that we can do is we can say, who is going to get this question? So we can see by default, when you just build a global request question, you can ask everybody. If you have a question that absolutely everybody has to fill out, put this Ask Everybody button. If you are a campus that has alcohol on your campus, mine was a dry campus, so we didn't have that. And even when I was working as using Astra, we didn't have that as a dry campus. So this is a new thing for me. But if you guys are having that, that's probably a great question to ask everybody, and we can even make it required. If you don't have that at all, then you can easily, change that or use a different question. But you can ask everybody. You can also, instead of asking everybody, choose who's going to get this question. Do you want admins to get it, managers, or participants? As a reminder to from our webinar last month, that the admins, managers, and participants, those are our different role types that you can have within the system. And then, of course, you also have guests that you can ask. So if someone's not logged into the system, you can ask them a question specifically for guests. But then down here at the bottom is where you can set up users and groups. And this is where I see us doing things like, if I come in and show, let's say we have a group of, I believe we have a marketing group. So let's say the marketing department needs to get certain questions. It's a pretty specific group. Let's say the marketing department needs to get specific questions. You can ask them questions that only they will see if they're logged in and they're in that group. You can do the same things with students and with faculty, staff. And this is what we see coming over from your single sign-on, coming in as a group, that they're in the group of student or in the group of faculty, staff, and that's how you can ask them separate questions. At my institution, we had some specific questions for students and a few less questions for faculty and staff because trust maybe faculty and staff a little bit more than you do for students. So we had different questions for them. And so we are able to go in and set those up of who's going to be getting those questions based off of this group. You can even do individuals if you need to for any reason. But otherwise, you can always, again, still check that Ask Everybody box. You can add as many questions as you would like as well. So if I click add here, you can see that we have different options. You can copy an existing question. So if you had a bunch of questions already in here and you're like, I like this question, I just want to reword it and basically do the same type of question, you can copy an existing one. But we have all sorts of things, a checkbox, an acknowledgement. We had a checkbox like that on, or acknowledgement. Well, actually, we had a checkbox in Astra Schedule, and people would use that of like, you agree to our policies. Now we have an acknowledgement area, and this one is great because you can actually upload an attachment and make somebody open that attachment and then check a box of, I acknowledge this. So if you have certain policies that you want them to look at, maybe you have rental rates that you want them to see before they go through and submit their request form. You can add those things into here. Another piece that has an attachment is you can do an attachment response, which means someone actually has to upload an attachment. That was a request that I got many, many, many times when implementing Astra Schedule, and now we can actually do that through the platform. Someone can upload an attachment, and then you can see that on the event side of the house. Then, of course, we have short and long responses, kind of the normal drop downs, things like that available to you. So you can still build your form as much as you want to in those different questions and make sure that those are showing up the way that you'd like them. Okay. So that's how you set up a single form to be one to many, is based off of that persona. Who is filling out this request? And that's based on those groups and with those logins. We don't quite have that connection piece made between SSO and those groups, but that's something that we have coming down the pipeline this year. And then this piece down at the bottom, this is a great example of continuous deployment, because last week this wasn't here, and we have had a request from one of our migrating clients that we want to allow when someone can fill out this request form. And so we now have this edit allowed booking times within the request form. If you remember from last month on our foundations webinar, we talked about rooms and how you can edit when the allowed booking times are. Can they come Monday through Friday and use it just from 8 to 5, things like that. We also have global allowed booking times now. So let's say you only want people to request events Monday through Saturday because your campus is always closed on Sundays. You can just come in and check those boxes. Let's say you don't want anybody here on Saturdays and Sundays at all, then just uncheck Saturday as well. So you can go through and choose. Now, and it's important to note that this is global for the whole form, but if you have something more restrictive for a room, that's going to still override it, and that's going to take precedence. So again, it's being able to use your different pieces of the form to be able to build the best experience for your end users and your requesters. But again, this wasn't here last week. It's here now. I didn't have to upgrade. I just clicked onto this page and I was like, hey, cool, this is here now. And that's one of the great things about this software is that you can have new things come out all the time. Okay. Before I move over to talk about room and resource requests, Charlie, any questions that I need to answer live or anything I need to go over here?
There was one question about the difference between the event and space request experience. What's the difference between them?
Okay. Oh, these up here. Oh, great.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me that I need to cover that. So the event request is your like traditional event request form where you start with, I want this time. Now it's going to show me the rooms that are available. The other piece that we have is here are all of your rooms. I'll go ahead and click on it to show you. This is something that's still kind of, we're developing it more and more. It's a totally new thing that we have within Astra of how we're going to be leveraging this. But instead, this is where you pick your room first, right? Where you can see if it's available today, if it's available, you can click on it. If you don't need it right now, you can use it at a later time. So instead, this is booking the space first and then filling out the relevant information, where the event request form is filling out the information that you need for your dates and times and then finding an available space. Okay. Some things that I see this being used for is maybe library study spaces, or maybe even conference rooms where you can see, these are great little, default images of these conference rooms, right? Of being able to go in and say, well, I know I want this conference room. Let me go see if my dates and times are available. And you can just click this rather than having to go through the other process of filling in your times first. This is picking your room first. Okay. Anything else, Charlie?
Can't find the mute button. Not right now.
Okay, great. I knew there would probably be lots of questions, so lots of typing back there. Okay, so those are our request questions that are global for the event request form. Now let's talk about when somebody clicks on a room or clicks on a resource. How does that work? So I'm going to come over to Spaces. I'm going to go ahead and open up Colmar and Fulton, and I'm going to open up this Colmar Fulton 171. So I set this one up today, where you can say, please upload a setup request form, or will you need assistance with the room technology? And these are request questions that I have set up specifically for Colmar Fulton 171. You can add as many questions as you need to for this individual space. And then you can also have rooms that have no questions at all, right? It's still available for public requests. Here's that edit allowed booking times that we talked about, where you can do it specific for the room. Now you can also do it specific for the whole request form. But this one doesn't have any questions tied to it. So you don't have to add questions for rooms, especially conference rooms, those library study spaces. Maybe those you just want somebody to click through and get through that request form really quickly. We have clients who use who use vehicles through the request process. You have them set up as rooms, and then people can request those vehicles as spaces. You have that already set up in Astra Schedule. You could have a whole bunch of questions for those spaces. And one thing that's really nice is that copy existing questions. So rather than having to fill out those so many questions for every vehicle, like upload your driver's license, submit your insurance, anything, those things like that, you can just easily copy those existing questions for those spaces. So it's really intuitive of the setup, and obviously someone's not going to get that question if they're requesting an actual physical space rather than requesting a vehicle. Okay? So that's where the request questions are on the individual space. And then we also have the same thing on the resource. So like if I go to this 6-foot folding table, we can see I have a question here of, do you need assistance setting up the tables? So rather than having to go through and, asking the different questions on different resources, or just on resources in general and adding them in as global questions. Now you can have these questions only show up if they pick resources or if they pick these specific resources. Because some people don't need resources for their events, right? Again, conference rooms, library study spaces, sometimes even just classrooms. They don't need anything extra brought into the space. And so they're able to fill this out easily by skipping through those things. No extra questions are going to come up. And I'll show you guys an example of that. Okay, so I'm going to click on this go to public view, and this is going to give us our public view of kind of like our landing page for this university site, right? This is at Astra University. I was able to pick this logo and also pick this color that shows up here because obviously these are our Astra colors. I can easily click to get to the public calendar, which we've showed before. Here was that book a space option, but then we also have the request an event option, right? So if I click on request an event, this is my more traditional request form, what you guys would be replacing your event request forms in Astra Schedule with. Although some of you might be able to request some of those forms with those book a space ones. If you know, like, oh, we have a form specific for our conference rooms or specific for our library study spaces. Now you can easily just send them over to this book a space area and they can just pick the room they want, fill out what they need and hit submit. And another important thing that we talked about last month is also the auto approve. So if you don't want to have to actually log in, you want somebody to fill out that process still and put their information in so you know who's using it, but you don't want to actually come in and click approve, we can still auto approve that. Or that's a new thing that we have that we didn't have in Astra Schedule. Okay. So this is that kind of generic event request form. So I'm going to go ahead. You can see this here. Hey there, Maggie, you're logged in, so you can skip this step. If the step would be filling out your email address and saying who you are, right? Guests will still need to fill this out so that we know who they are. But it knows who I am because I'm already logged into the system. So if your faculty and staff are already logged in, looking at the calendar, go into the timeline view in order to see if their room is available or looking at available spaces on the date they care about. If you have students already logged in looking for available space for their event that they're having for their student organization, when they click on request an event, they're able to see that already. And then the other option that they have is like if they're in the calendar, they can click on host an event as well, and that takes them to the same request form. Okay. So I'll go ahead and fill this out. We'll call this Ad Astra webinar. And I'm able to pick my date and time. So let's say I'm going to be having it on, let's pick June 18th because that's my due date and I should have a baby by then, and that'll be fun. So we can come in here and do, let's say 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. We're going to be having a webinar. I can click next again, say how many attendees we're having. Let's say we're having 10 attendees. Click next here again. And then I can select my space. So right now our spaces are just a drop down. If you've been on the academic side, you've seen the room picker. And of course, you know what a room picker looks like in Astra Schedule, where you can choose, I want this building, or I want this feature, or I want this region. That's something that will be coming here as well. Right now, we just have a drop down, but it is showing you what's available. You can toggle to see what's unavailable, things like that. So I could see here's that Colmar Fulton 171, but I'm actually going to pick 187, the one that doesn't have any questions. Okay. So that'll fill out for me here in just a second. Then I'll click next. Then I can add my resources. And I'll get a nice drop down here, and I'm going to choose that folding table that we know does have a question with it. So if I click next here, it's first going to take me to my global request questions. So here's that will you have alcohol at your event question. We can see it's not required. So I actually could skip past this if I wanted to because it's not required. If it was required, it would have the little asterisk as globally known that that means it's a required field. I am going to go ahead and fill out no and click next. And then here's that resource question on do you need assistance setting up the tables? So I picked that 6-foot folding table. And so I'm able to say, yes, I do need assistance. We've had some questions of if you say yes here, does that automatically trigger something? It doesn't automatically trigger anything here. I would say that's the people side of being an event scheduler is you would be able to see that's what someone filled out on the event request form and be able to see, oh, somebody filled this out. I need to make sure to maybe add another resource onto the event of technical support, or I guess this isn't technical support, this would be maintenance support or facility support in order for somebody to come and help set up those tables, things like that. It's more like a trigger of what do I need to do to help this person have the best event? Because there's always people involved with making events happen, right? Then I'll click next again, and we can see we get to the additional information box. Click next one more time. It's going to give me an overview of what my request is, but I didn't have any questions around the room, right? Because I picked room 187 that doesn't have any specific request questions. It's just a Joe Schmo classroom. I don't need anything extra. You can just come into this room and use it how it is. Although I am asking for one 6-foot folding table, let's say to probably set up some food or something at the front of the room for during the webinar. Then I click looks good, and then finalize request. We get some fun little confetti, and then we can click back to at Astra University, takes us to the public facing calendar again, and then I can easily click host an event and request something else if I want to. Okay, so that's very easy to go through that request form, and you could see the clicking through the different pages really reminds me of the event wizard for our old school Astra schedule people. If you were on version 7, I think version 6 had it as well. We had an event wizard that you would use to set up an event. The event request form is very similar to that, where it's making sure that you go through. And Charlie, this is a fun story. The first meeting I ever had with Charlie, I told him that I love the event wizard. As an event scheduler, and he was like, you're an app user, you like to see the things you need at that time and then go through to the next things. That being said, it makes it very easy to use on a mobile device, so very easy to request events on mobile devices as well, so that your students who are using your mobile device a lot are able to go in and request their event easily through their iPhone or on their Android, rather than having to sit down at a computer and actually fill it out like Astra Schedule has. Your faculty and staff probably will still be filling it out on their computers since they're sitting at their desks filling things out, looking at calendars, things like that. But it works beautifully on both platforms. Okay. Before I talk about the approval process, any questions that we've gotten that I need to go through, Charlie?
I don't think so. I think I've got them.
Okay, great. Good job. Okay, so wanted you guys to know with my lovely Apple Watch here, I received a notification from Ad Astra that says Ad Astra webinar, a public booking was requested. I got a text message about it, so you can see that's new. We'll be talking through how we set up how we can set up those notifications. But I'll also receive an email, and that would help me click into that specific event. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Outlook here real quick to be able to show that to you, so you can see what that looks like. No, we don't want to open that. So I did get an email. Give it a second for my Outlook to decide to wake up. And your people who requested as well will also be receiving an email. And so we can see here's my email that a public webinar was requested. This is the request. So anytime the name comes through, we'd see that here. This just takes me to open Ad Astra in general. The blue text here takes me to that specific event. And you can also see here that I have an ICS file specifically with this booking. So anytime we're sending notification emails about an event, it's coming with an ICS file. So right now, of course, you know, in Astra Schedule, you can go to the calendar and you can add an individual meeting or or even a section kind of longer calendar to your Outlook calendar, or even to your Google Calendar if you have that set up with those ICS files. This is going to come to you automatically. You don't have to go into a calendar, and so your requesters are going to be receiving these ICS files as well, so they can go and add those to their calendar very easily. Okay, so I can easily click on Add Astra Webinar, and that'll take me into my event. Now, remember, you can set up your notifications and set up your resources and set up who can approve these. Just as a reminder, if I go into one of my resources here, you can go in and set up who can set these up. Oop, I think I made us a little bit mad. Give me a second here. And I can see that event and go in and approve that. I think, Charlie, I might pass it over to you for a second so I can get this set up and going to talk about those notifications. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a second and get us all set up on the approvals if you want to talk through those notifications for us.
Yeah, sure. I guess quick side note, if you guys are asking questions in the Q&A and I haven't got to your question yet, I promise I'm going as fast as I can. Yeah, so in the new system, we have a sort of a more modern way of managing notifications. Notifications can come out in one of three different types. So we have in-app notifications, we have email notifications, and new to this system, we have text message notifications. So when you set up your profile, and this is on a user by user basis, you get to decide what kinds of notifications you want to receive. As Maggie demonstrated a second ago, she's getting text message notifications from the system to let her know when things are changing. And these notifications will come out from different types of notifications, whether like a booking is scheduled, a booking is canceled, the location has changed, whether there's a new booking request, the one Maggie just received. In terms of like the platform overall, if you have gotten invited to the platform, if you got invited to a group, those kinds of notifications will come from the system. But you get to decide what kinds of notifications you want to receive, and it can be any or all of those. The other thing that we do is to sort of avoid the system being too chatty, right? Sending out 1,000 notifications a day. We know a lot of you guys are processing a lot of those things during the day. We don't want to send you 1,000 text message notifications. So what we do is we look at the change to the activity, the change to the booking, and if that change is happening within the next 24 hours. So let's say you move a meeting space that's happening this afternoon, we're going to send an immediate notification. We're going to let those folks, whether they're guests or admins or organizers or whoever is involved in that booking, we're going to let them know right away that the location has changed, for example. But if that's happening in 3 months, what we'll do is we'll collect all of those notifications and we'll send a summary email in the morning. That way you're getting the information that you need and you're being kept up to speed on what's going on within the system, but you're not getting 1,000 messages during the day. So it's pretty flexible. We are always looking to add new notification types, and some of our early adopters have already given us some great ideas. One that's coming out literally this week, I had fingers crossed, hoped it would be out for this webinar, was we're going to start sending reminders for folks. So like if you're involved in an activity that's happening tomorrow afternoon, we're going to let you know, hey, such and such activity is happening tomorrow. Look forward to having you there. We're also going to be enhancing the notifications that come out based on the workflow that's being driven. So letting those requesters know whether their space has been approved or their resource has been approved. Those kinds of requests or notifications are coming. So always looking to add more to make sure that folks are kept up to speed on what's going on. So any ideas that you all have, I'm all ears. We're always excited to extend that stuff. But yeah, anything I missed, Maggie, that you wanted to share?
No, and that's great that I'm also going to put in here the link to the roadmap, because
Oh
that
yeah, great idea.
is Yes. So exactly what Charlie was saying. If you have ideas, things that you're seeing, you're like, oh, this would be cool if it could do this. Click on that link and hit that submit idea button in the top right corner so that we can have those ideas and, get them into our process. Okay.
Every
Thank
time
you,
you say
Charlie.
it may or may not go straight to my phone. Just saying.
Blow his phone up. That's
Yeah.
good. We want that.
All right. Thanks, Maggie.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen again. Share here real quick. Okay, so here is that Ad Astra webinar, and we can see that it's in a requested status. Our room is in a pending status, and our resource is in a pending status. So you can choose who can approve of each of these things, right? So you can have, you set that up within the resource within the room itself, just like we talked about uh, last month's webinar, where we talked through you could set up your permissions on approvals and even who can request things like that from the campus level all the way down to the individual room level and then individual resource level. But I can come here and say, pending. I can switch this from pending to approve. Let's say for the tables, if I was just the table approver, I can do the same thing, come in and loading that real quick. So I can come in and see that approved. I can also come in and approve the room, but then of course I can come up to where my event is in a requested status. You can see it comes through in a requested status, and I can switch that to a scheduled status to where my event is good to go, scheduled on the calendar. Okay. And so that's what the event request, submitting the event request, and then being able to click into the event pulls it up here for me to go through and fill that out. If you are set up as an approver, we have a view within the calendar where you can say, let me close out of this real quick. There's a filter here and there's this tasks assigned to me. That's something where you can click and view any events that have things that you need to go in and approve. We don't have a traditional notification list, although we've gotten some feedback from some clients who have already started working and playing in the new platform and some that have already migrated, that they're interested in having a notification list, kind of like a task list that they need to work through, which is what the notification list definitely was in Astra Schedule. So if that's something that you definitely care about, absolutely you should go in and submit that as an idea so that we can get that prioritized as well. Okay. So that's kind of what that process and that flow looks like. I know that Charlie is going through and answering questions right now, but I saw a few just that are coming in through the chat. One of them was, will our old forms be migrated? That's a great question, and that's something that we're not migrating. Because it's a totally new setup, we're not migrating those forms because we wouldn't know how you wanted to take possibly 10 forms and put it into a single form. So that'll be one of the setup pieces that you'll need to do within that new platform is setting up those different global request questions, setting up within the room and resources so that it's ready for you. That's of course something that we will train on during the migration implementation. We have, of course, our implementation consultants are still working with you. Like I said, we see about a month of what that migration looks like, or that project looks like. And so we'll make sure that you know exactly how to do that. You have all the tools that you need to be able to get that form up and running. Um, there was a question on room pictures coming over from Tabitha. Those images are not migrating right now. We are just migrating the rooms themselves, and we actually have set up within our development to set up the resources to be migrated later this year. If room images and resource images are things, I think resource images is actually broken in Astra Schedule, not broken in Essential Scheduling. If you are wanting those to come over into the new platform, again, submit that as an idea so that we can get that prioritized as well. The more we get, the better. Okay. And then we got a question on how will the calendar show if you have multiple rooms in one event? Just a reminder that when you have an event or a booking, what we call a booking now, which is what you would have called a meeting. Wow, I chose wisely. That we have these two rooms associated to the same booking. So I'm able to see if I click into that IT phone support, I can see that there are actually two rooms associated to this individual space. And now if you're talking about maybe through Outlook, that's something that we can always follow up on. But this is where I can see here's the booking and here are the two rooms that are associated for this individual booking. Okay. Wanted to see, Charlie, are there any questions that I can answer that have come in so far.
Let me see. Um, no, I think I can handle these, Maggie.
Okay, great. Well, that's everything I wanted to make sure to share. And again, if there are, Charlie's getting to your questions. If there are questions that you guys have that we aren't able to answer on the webinar today, we'll be able to follow up with you for sure. Don't worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and switch over. Can this calendar reflect by rooms like scheduler? Tabitha, just to get to your question real quick that's in the chat, you can color by this calendar and you can color by space. So if I click this space here, we can see that all sorts of spaces are being used on this campus. I mean, I could filter this down to specific spaces and then be able to see, where are rooms being used. You can use this color by, and then I can always reset to go back to these are the event category colors that we have. But then you can also filter, of course, by individual space as well. We're going to be adding in filtering by building and filtering by campus as well. So you can easily filter here if you're a multi-campus institution. Okay, but I'm actually going to switch my share again back over to, yep, this is the one I want, share. Yep, and I can see we're seeing our PowerPoint again. So again, we went through the event request setup, the global setup, the room and resource questions, as well as the notifications. And then we looked at how to approve those events as well. Charlie's going through that additional Q&A. I just want to say that one of my favorite things I get to do each month is pick these little icons that I get to use for the PowerPoint. So this one was really fun. I loved, picking the little brown bag lunch and the apple for academic scheduling. Anyway, little things that make Ad Astra employees happy. So these are our upcoming webinars. Like I said, it's not going to be me on these webinars coming up. It's going to be most likely Peter on our next one for academic scheduling. He's actually on site with a client today, otherwise he'd be here with us. And then we also have event registrations and invoicing, which should be Charlie and probably Peter assisting him. So this is a fun icon. I get to pick two, treasure. So these are the webinars that you can expect coming up over the summer. Highly recommend letting your people on your campus know. Let's say you're an event scheduler. Maybe you mostly use events in Astra Schedule, but hey, we're going to be migrating. Somebody's maybe not using Astra Schedule now on the academic side, but we want them to start using it more. There's this great tool that's available to them to be able to go in and build their full section, not just necessarily change the room assignment. Highly recommend telling them to come to that June 25th webinar so we can walk through what that looks like. So definitely share with your peers on campus. And remember that once you register for one webinar, you register for all of them, and you'll be able to get emails with the links to those webinars as well. Okay. Want to give a plug again for the space station. The space station is the best place for you to come in and find your people that you have across the nation who are using Ad Astra products in the way that you guys are, or maybe in different ways. And so for you to learn. So if you have questions about how people are getting more adoption on campus or how you are dealing with maybe certain event things, there's always crazy event stuff happening on campus, and events people always know all the things that are happening on campus, right? Whether we want to or not, we're the people that know it all. Put myself as we, because like I said, that I was one of those for 2 years before I started working at Astra. You can talk to your peers through that and know what's going on. One thing I don't have in here, I don't have a slide on, is we do have some summits coming up as well, some regional summits, which is kind of like a mini Aspire. Aspire is our users conference that we have in October. I also don't have a slide on that, but I'll talk through that too. But both of those things you can find information on in the space station if you're not already in there. It is gamified, so that means you can also play games and get rewards and then actually redeem rewards. We have some cool socks that we've had in the past, and t-shirts, things like that. And you can redeem it for gift cards, things like that. So everybody likes gift cards. Go play things in the space station. But those summits are coming up. We have information in there. And then our Aspire conference is in October. That's a great place to come in and learn about all things at Astra. We'll be focusing heavily on this new platform and on talking through migrations and things like that. So if it's something that you're interested in all in doing soon, then I highly recommend coming to that, whether you're wanting to move this year or next year. This would be a great conference to attend. Okay. Want to throw up this slide with my name and my email address so you guys can email me. Of course, I'm going to be out in the next couple of weeks. This slide will probably change over to Peter for our next webinar, but please feel free to reach out if you have questions. If you also have questions, you can always submit a support ticket. If you don't, let's say you don't know who your client success lead is, absolutely you can reach out to your client success lead as well. But if you don't necessarily know who that is, or you feel like it's a more technical question, and you're just not sure where to go, you can always, always, always submit a support ticket, and our team will get you into the right hands of whoever that is, whether it is someone in software support, whether that's somebody like a client success lead, or even a product manager like Charlie and his team who can help you with the question there as well. Okay. Okay. Well, I know we still have some questions. Charlie's answering some of those. I'll answer one of them live real quick. Charlie, I can see is typing the answer. You can't have more than one image per room by having different configurations. So you can set up different configurations for a space and have different images for each configuration available to you as well. Okay, so if you guys have other questions that you have, please feel free to, like I said, submit a support ticket, send me an email, talk to your client success lead. But otherwise, thanks for joining our webinar today. Thank you, Charlie, for being lightning fingers in the background, answering questions and talking through notifications. And we will see you guys next month for our academic schedule building webinar. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.